All right, welcome to the stitch tutorial for this little floral whale design. This is a part of my Simply Summer Stick and Stitch pack, and I'm going to show you a tutorial on one possible way that you could stitch up this little whale. I'm just going to do mine on a little 4-inch hoop today. I've already previously added this design to one of my daughter's dresses before, so today I'm just going to do it on a hoop for ease of tutorial purposes. So I'm grabbing 2 layers of fabric and I'm going to get them into the hoop here and make sure that they're nice and tight. This is a really beautiful speckled cotton linen fabric from Robert Kaufman. It's part of his Essex line, I do believe. And it's got these really beautiful little speckles in it. So I love this one for like beachy projects. And then I'm going to go ahead and peel away the stick and stitch design from the backing and gently put it on to my hoop. I'm going to just angle mine a little bit like this. You could totally put this on a hoop and add in like a little name underneath. That would be super cute for a kid or a nursery. And then we're going to get started with stitching. Today I'm going to be using the colors 747, 924, 310, which is just black, 3052, 948, and 3778, and we're going to stitch up this whale together. Let's get started. I'm going to start by grabbing 3 strands of the 924 color, and this is what I'm going to use to outline the body of the whale. So I've got about 13 inches of thread here, and I'm going to split this into 3 strands because I just want to use 3 strands right now. And go ahead and put that through my needle. And get that through the eye of the needle. Oops. Okay, goodness gracious. And then at the other end, I will just give myself a little knot to tie off here. Cut away any of the excess, and we will start by outlining the body of the whale with a chain stitch. So I'm going to start right here where these kind of grouping of flowers ends, and especially when you first are starting with a stick and stitch design, with your non-stitching hand you want to help hold the paper down a little bit so that it doesn't lift up from the fabric as you come up through the fabric. So I'm just sort of pressing down with my thumb and pinching on the other side. This is with my non-stitching hand as I pull the needle up through the fabric. And we're going to do chain stitch here. So you're going to come up through the fabric and you're going to go back down that same hole. And when you're starting with chain stitch, since the knot is going to be right on the other side, with my non-stitching hand I'm kind of pulling that knot to the side a little bit so that I can angle my needle down through there without running into the knot. And before you pull all the way through, you're going to leave a loop out like this. And you're going to come up on the inside of that loop about a stitch length away. And then you're going to pull tight. So now I've made a little chain or a little loop here. You're going to go back down through that same hole that you just came up through. So it's on the inside of the loop that I'm going down. And then I'm going to come back up through the fabric about a stitch length away on the inside of the loop and pull tight again. And I'm going to repeat this, go back down on the inside of that loop, leave a loop out, come up a stitch length away on the inside of your loop, and pull tight. I like to do my chains pretty nice and tight, at least for this particular design today. Sometimes you can leave them a little bit looser, just kind of depends how you want them to look. If I only pull about that loose, they're just going to have a much more rounded appearance to them. I just want them to be a little bit tighter like this. And I'm going to continue that all the way around the whale here. You're just going to follow the line. Try to keep your stitch lengths as even as you can. Keep going until I get up towards the end of the tail here. Just see if I can do one more little tiny one to kind of end right here, and then I might start again. So I'm going to do a little down stitch on the other side of this loop to anchor it down. And then I'm going to start again going down this side of the whale. So I'll come up through the fabric, go back down through the same hole, and begin my chain stitch again. All right, so I'm right about here with my chain stitch, and I want to go ahead and finish off the top part of the whale. So I'm going to take a really tight curve right here, which can be just a little bit difficult. So I'm going to do one chain that's kind of going this way, and I'm going to go ahead and actually anchor that one down. And then I'm going to continue going this way now with the chain. Just so we get, that was a really tight little turn right there. So sometimes you could just sort of stop and start, and then you're better able to change direction. So I'm going to finish this chain stitch all the way up to where these leaves are. All right, so I have the whole little outline of the whale in chain stitch. I've moved on, I've grabbed all 6 strands of 747, and now I'm going to do a back stitch to outline this and then outline each of the fins here, and then we'll do a different color. We're actually going to go back to this color for the interior, but starting right here, I'm going to start my back stitch. So I'm going to come up through the fabric, and I will make a stitch about a stitch length away. And the reason that we like to start with a straight stitch is just so that you don't immediately back stitch into a knot on the back side. But now every other stitch, you're going to come up a stitch length away. Oh my goodness, shaky camera. And then you will go back down through that same hole that we just made from the previous stitch. Then I'll come up a stitch length away and go back down through that same hole. And then I'll come up a stitch length away. Getting a little bit of my fabric cut in here, so I'm going to take this off for just a second. I'm going to go all the way up to the end here, and then I'll change direction. Okay, now I can change direction and finish outlining underneath here. So I'm going to come up a stitch length away from that corner and go back down right here. And I'm just going to continue that way all the way down here. Then I'm going to also outline this fin and this fin and this fin with this same 6 strands of 747 and just a back stitch. All right, the next thing I want to do is just quickly fill in these little interior lines on our little whale. So I just have 3 strands of the 924 color, just want to make sure I have that right. And I'm just going to do these also as a little back stitch, but they're going to be a bit thinner because they're just 3 strands. And for this particular design, I'm just doing like the outline of it with the flowers. I'm not actually going to fill the whale in. So I did choose like this light blue fabric just because it'll kind of pop off that and have the sort of background color that I want. So if you wanted to fill in the whale, you could like continue filling it in with chain stitch. You could do long and short stitch in there. You could even try a little bit of satin stitch. But I'm just doing more of a simple outline on this whale because I think it works well for this particular design. So I'm going to back stitch this one, and then I'll come over here and do this line and this line as well, and then we'll get started on the eye and the flowers. Let's do the eye. I have 3 strands of 310 here, and what I'm going to do is start with a little French knot in the middle for the little like eyeball, and that's just going to be a 1 wrap French knot. So I came up through the fabric, I'm going to wrap my thread around the needle 1 time, and then I'm going to angle my needle back down and push it straight down through that knot. Pull that nice and tight. Now to go around here, I'm going to try to just do the teeniest, tiniest little back stitch that I can do. An outline stitch might be nice here too. Actually, let's do that. I'll show you an outline stitch. Let's show you what it looks like. So with an outline stitch, I start the same way. I'm going to go out a stitch length away, and I'm going to come up on the inside before I pull all the way through. And then I'm going to pull that thread kind of in the direction that I'm stitching. Let me zoom this in a little bit more for you. Now I'm going to go and make a down stitch about a stitch length away, a tiny stitch length. I'm holding my thread out away from the eye here, and I'm coming up on the inside of that stitch, and then I'm going to pull in the direction that I'm stitching. So then I'll go down about a stitch length away right here. I'm going to come up on the inside there. Oops, I think I came up through my thread here. Let's get that off my needle. Okay, and then I'm going to pull in the direction that I'm stitching. And then I'll go down a stitch length away, leave some thread out, and pull. My dog started barking, so I had to go do that for a minute. Okay, so now we're going to come up through here, pull, see if I can finish this one out right here. And then I'll make 1 little down stitch right here to connect it. All right, so I have the eye done. You could also just do a back stitch there if you wanted to. Just keep your stitch lengths really, really, really tiny so that you can get the back stitch all the way around nicely. Okay, so we're gonna move on now to the 2 woven wheel roses. These are pretty small, so bear with me here. If you've never done a woven wheel before, this is going to be kind of a small scale tutorial to show you real quick. But I'm using 3 strands of 948, and I'll start with this one right here. I'm going to come up on the edge, at the edge of 1 spoke, and I'm going to make a straight stitch down towards the middle. And I'm going to repeat that for every other spoke. Both of these woven wheels are going to be done the same way, so after we finish this one, you can do the other one the exact same way. All right, so the next step, once you've got a straight stitch over each spoke, is to come up in between 2 of them, right close to the center. Come up right next, in between any of the 2 spokes, right as close to the center as you can get, and we're going to be weaving under and over each spoke with our needle. So since I'm right next to this one, I'm going to go ahead and go over this one, and I want to go underneath this one. So I'm going to push my needle through. What I like to do is with my non-stitching hand, I like to take it underneath the hoop or whatever I'm stitching on and press up from underneath so that I can sort of angle my needle against that tension and angle it up so that it goes nicely underneath that stitch and doesn't run into the stick and stitch paper or any other thread. So I'm just kind of pushing this through there, and then I'm going to pull it through. Now, since I went under this one, I want to go over this spoke and then underneath this one. So I'm going to go over this one and under this one. I'm going to go over this one and under this one. I'm going to go over this one and under this one. I'm going to go over this one and under this one. I'm going to go over this one and under this one. Over this one, under this one. Over this one, under this one. Over this one, under this one. You can see this shape is starting to get filled in, so I'm going to go over this one and under this one. Over this one, under this one. Over this one, under this one. Over, under. Sorry. I got pulled out of the way. Over, under. Over this one, under this one. This one's starting to get a little bit hidden, but I can still kind of find the edge and push through there. This is much easier to do when you don't have it in a stand and you can kind of rotate your hoop or whatever you're stitching on. All right, so I've got that really nice and close to filled in. At the end, just to give it a little more to fill in, you can end with just a few like little straight stitches around the edges of it to cover up if there's any like spokes that are showing through on one side because maybe they were just a little bit uneven. And just give it a little bit more volume. All right, so I have that filled in. I'm going to repeat on this one and then we'll finish the leaves and the other flowers. All right, got my little roses done. So now I'm going to do this little flower, which is going to be done the same as this flower and the same as this flower. I have 4 strands of 3778 and I'm going to do a lazy daisy for each of the petals. So I'll show you on this one right here. For a lazy daisy, you're going to come up through the fabric and you're going to go back down through that same hole. Always on your first one, be careful that you don't go down through your knot and pull your knot through. So you can kind of grab it from the other side and angle your needle away from it. And then you're going to leave a loop out. This is kind of similar to chain stitch actually. And I'm going to come up at the tip of the petal on the inside of that loop and pull. I'm just not going to pull quite so tight as I did when I did chain stitch earlier. I just want to pull until I get the petal shape that I want. And I'm going to anchor that down by making a down stitch just on the other side of the loop. So you can see my thread right now is on the inside of the loop. I want to make a down stitch right on the other side of the loop right here to anchor that into place. And I will repeat for each petal of each of these 3 flowers. this one right close to here. Okay. Then I will do the same for these 4 petals and for these 3 little ones coming off of this little fin over here. Optional, but something I really like to do at the center of each of these darker pink flowers is define them by giving them a center. So I've grabbed 3 strands of 948 and I'm just going to do a little 2-wrap French knot at the center of each of these flowers. Do one in the center of here. And one right here. You could always use a different color if you don't want it to be the exact same as the woven wheel rose that we have, but I just like that it gives it a little bit more definition right there. Last but not least, we're going to do these little leaves. I have 4 strands of 3052 here, and I'm going to do like a satin leaf stitch, but these are pretty small, so you'll only have to do a couple stitches. So you can come up through the fabric and you can make a down stitch about halfway down the center of the leaf, like so. And then you're going to come up on one side of your stitch a little bit below it, of that first center stitch, and you'll make your down stitch right underneath that first down stitch that you made in the center of the leaf. And then you're going to repeat that, but on the other side. And then I'll repeat that once more over here. And again on this side until I have this whole leaf shape filled in. Might do one more on this side here. Okay, and then I'm going to do the same thing on this leaf as well. So hopefully that gives you a good idea of how you can fill those in, and you'll repeat for these 2 over here, and then I'll walk you through how to wash away your stick and stitch paper. Okay, so I have finished up stitching everything on this little whale. Such a cutie pie. So you're going to wash away your stick and stitch paper whenever you're done with whatever you're working on. If it's a tea towel, a bag, doesn't really matter. Mine is on a hoop, but I'm going to take it to my sink and I'm going to run full speed some warm to hot water. Can't stress this enough, cold water does not do the trick. Please make sure it's warm, 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 even towards the hot side. And you're just going to let the pressure of the faucet and the running water, you're going to let it run all over, and you're going to see the paper start to dissolve away. And you can just kind of run it under there for a good 30-45 seconds and use your finger towards any little detail areas or areas where the paper is trying to cling to. And then you can take your hoop out and take a look at it. You'll be able to see if there's any left. You can kind of just see it glistening. And if there is any left, you can just put it back under the water and get that all gone. And once it's gone, you just want to let it dry completely, and then you can be done with your project, depending on whatever you decided to stitch this whale on. For me, I would just give this hoop a quick backing, and then it would be all done. So hopefully this has been a good tutorial for you and gave you some ideas, if you do have this pattern from the Simply Summer Stick and Stitch Pack, on ways that you could fill this design in. And feel free to change up the colors, use different stitch techniques, but this is just to give you an idea and a starting off point of one way that you could do this. Please like and subscribe if you are enjoying this content, and drop me any comments or questions below.